You already know more than you think. You just haven't learned how to decode the signals. Because every person, whether they realize it or not, leaves behind a trail of clues, micro-expressions, pauses, overreactions, contradictions. It's all there, hidden in plain sight. And Nietzsche's 18 psychological truths? They'll teach you how to read those clues and what they actually reveal about the human soul. This isn't a tips and tricks video. It's a complete psychological breakdown, divided into 3 immersive parts, each building on the last. If you skip ahead or miss even one insight, you'll lose the very foundation that makes this understanding transformational. So, stay with me, because by the time we finish, you won't just read people differently, you'll read yourself differently. And that shift? It's irreversible. From the moment we enter the world, we're conditioned to trust words. We're told that language is truth, that what someone says is who they are. But Nietzsche challenged this illusion. He warned, words are often camouflage, because people don't speak from clarity. They speak from fear, from ego, from their need to survive in a world that constantly asks them to perform. What you hear is rarely the truth. It's a defense. Think of it like this. The personality someone presents isn't their core. It's their shield. The overly kind person might not be kind at all. They might just be terrified of rejection, so they overcompensate. The one who appears strong and unshakable, they may be silently crumbling, hoping their mask doesn't crack under pressure. And here's what's most haunting. They're not lying to you. They don't even realize they're lying to themselves. Most people are performing a role they didn't audition for, a role that was handed to them by childhood trauma, cultural expectations, or the fear of abandonment. Their smiles? Practiced. Their tone? Edited. Their identity? A patchwork of survival strategies. They're not hiding from you. They're hiding from the parts of themselves they were never allowed to express. Nietzsche once said, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." But he wasn't condemning us. He was warning us, don't mistake the mask for the person. Because underneath that carefully constructed persona lies the truth they're afraid to show. And that's exactly where we begin. Truth 1. Everyone wears a mask to survive, not because they're fake, but because they're afraid. Afraid of rejection, afraid of being truly seen and then left behind. So they craft a version of themselves the world might accept. Polished, pleasant, predictable. But masks are never perfect. They slip, always. And the first sign of truth isn't a confession. It's discomfort. Watch closely. What makes someone twitch? Flinch? Change the subject? That's not noise, that's signal. Because the real person begins where comfort ends. Truth 2. What someone hates in others reveals what they're hiding in themselves. This is one of Nietzsche's most piercing observations. Projection. When a person repeatedly mocks arrogance, they're often wrestling with their own fragile sense of self-worth. When someone is obsessed with exposing dishonesty, it's usually because there's a truth inside them they haven't had the courage to face. We lash out at others for the very things we secretly fear in ourselves, because it's easier to judge than to introspect, easier to blame than to admit. Criticism, at its root, is often a mirror. Truth 3. Silence reveals more than words. Nietzsche didn't believe the truth hides in conversation. He believed it hides in the cracks. Words are convenient. They let us perform normalcy. But truth lives in hesitation. A pause before answering. A subtle dodge when things get too personal. A short, scripted reply to a deep question. Silence isn't empty. It's loaded. And the moment someone avoids vulnerability, they've already revealed everything. Truth 4. Excessive virtue is often disguised the vanity. Be cautious of those who wear morality like armor, the ones who always preach, always correct, always pure. Nietzsche saw this not as strength, but as a hidden thirst for control. He called it the will to power in disguise. Because sometimes goodness isn't sincere. It's a strategy, a way to climb the social ladder without appearing ruthless, a way to dominate while pretending to serve. The louder the signal of virtue, the more likely there's a shadow lurking behind it. Truth 5. People don't lie to you first. They lie to themselves. I'm fine. I've moved on. It doesn't bother me. These aren't lies meant to deceive you. They're stories people have repeated so often. They've convinced themselves. Nietzsche didn't see self-deception as weakness. He saw it as survival. Because when life becomes unbearable, the mind rewrites reality just to keep going. So next time someone's words don't match their energy, don't assume they're manipulating you. They've been fooling themselves for far longer, and that's where the real story begins. Truth 6. Where someone feels superior, they're hiding inferiority. This is one of Nietzsche's most sobering truths. Superiority is often overcompensation. If someone constantly needs to remind you of how successful, intelligent, or powerful they are, it's not pride, it's fear. Because real confidence doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek validation. It just is. So when you see someone striving to dominate, look closer. Behind the throne, you'll often find a frightened child, wearing a crown that doesn't fit. Part 2. Behind the mask. Reading people is not about judgment. It's about discernment. Understanding what hides beneath the surface. The person who constantly interrupts? They may fear being forgotten, like silence might erase them. The one who posts obsessively about joy and success? It could be a cry for help, a desperate plea to feel something real. And the person who avoids your eyes while saying, "I'm fine," they're not speaking to you. They're shielding themselves. Nietzsche didn't want us to manipulate people. He wanted us to stop being manipulated, to stop being fooled by smiles, applause, and masks, to see through them and connect with what's actually there. Truth 7. Most actions are driven by unconscious fear. Why does someone over-explain? Why do they dominate the room or disappear completely? Fear, not always obvious, not always dramatic, but always present. Fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of looking weak, fear of not mattering. Nietzsche believed most people don't act from what they want. They act from what they're terrified to lose. So if you want to understand someone, stop asking, what do they want? Start asking, what are they afraid of? Because beneath every bold move is a soft wound. And beneath every silence, a quiet scream. Truth 8. When someone criticizes too much, it's projection. The man who mocks emotional people might be drowning in feelings he never learned to process. The woman who belittles others for their looks may be waging a private war with her own reflection. Criticism isn't always analysis. Sometimes it's camouflage. Nietzsche saw judgment not as clarity, but as confession, because the traits we hate in others are often the very parts of ourselves we've rejected. So when someone fixates on others' flaws, don't look at who they're judging. Look at what they're hiding. Truth 9. Guilt hides behind false confidence. We all know someone who seems too sure of themselves, always collected, always in control. But if you look closer, you'll see tension in the jaw, over-preparation, a fragile calm. This isn't confidence. It's a cover. Nietzsche believed those who appear most secure are often those most tormented by the past. They don't want to impress you. They want to silence their shame. Because sometimes confidence isn't presence. It's penance. Truth 10. People betray themselves through exaggeration. I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm always happy. I never need help. These are not affirmations, they're alerts. Exaggeration is a tell. It's the ego turning up the volume, trying to drown out the quiet truth beneath. Nietzsche warned us that extremes are not strength, they are imbalance. So when someone speaks in absolutes, don't listen for what they say. Listen for what they're trying to shut out. Because when someone shouts, "I'm strong," you must ask, what part of them feels unbearably weak? Truth 11. Those who seek control often fear. Inner chaos. Control freaks aren't tyrants. They're survivors. The person who micromanages every detail. Who can't tolerate uncertainty. Who dominates conversations and decisions. They're not asserting power. They're trying to regain it. Nietzsche saw this clearly. When your inner world is disordered, you try to over-organize the outer one. So when someone tightens their grip, know this. It's not a sign of strength. It's a silent scream for safety. Truth 12. The louder the performance, the emptier the core. Look around, scroll through social media, the filtered perfection, the constant updates, the polished personas. This isn't authenticity, it's auditioning. Nietzsche believed the deepest insecurity is not being unseen. It's believing that being yourself isn't enough to be loved. So people perform, louder, brighter, flashier, until the noise drowns out the ache. But the person who truly knows themselves doesn't need the spotlight. They don't need applause. They are already whole. So when you see someone trying too hard, don't judge the performance. See the wound that created it. Part 3. Reading the soul. You can feel it now. The shift. You no longer just hear words. You hear wounds. You no longer simply see people. You read them. Not like a book, but like a mirror. You catch the tremor behind their smile, the pause behind their confidence, the truth they don't yet know they're leaking. You're not reading minds. You're reading masks. And underneath every mask lies a soul shaped by unseen pain. Truth 13. No one speaks from logic. They speak from pain. I don't believe in love. It's all a scam. It's better to be alone. These aren't conclusions. They're defenses. People build walls and then decorate them with logic. They argue not to win, but to protect. What sounds like reasoning is often grief in disguise. So don't just ask what someone believes. Ask what they're afraid to feel again. Because behind every hardened opinion is a wound they've never dared to reopen. Truth 14. How someone reacts to weakness reveals their power. Want to know someone's character? Watch how they treat someone who can't fight back. True strength isn't proven through dominance. It's revealed in restraint. The person who mocks vulnerability is afraid of their own. The one who punishes every mistake likely wasn't allowed to make any. But the person who holds their power gently, who can forgive when punishment is easy, that's real power, because they've already won the war inside themselves. Truth 15. When someone fears being forgotten, they chase attention. Ever met someone who needs to be seen? Every room they walk into, every word they speak, craving spotlight like oxygen. It's not vanity. It's a silent cry, a leftover ache from childhood, because the child who was ignored becomes the adult who performs, not for applause, but for reassurance they exist. So when someone demands attention, don't rush to judgment. Ask, what would happen if they felt invisible again? Truth 16. The person they attack is often the one they envy. Envy wears many faces. It looks like mockery. It sounds like gossip. It feels like hate. But deep down, it's grief. For a part of themselves, they believe they lost. When someone tears down the successful, when they scoff at freedom or confidence or joy, they're not just being mean, they're mourning what they gave up on. Nietzsche saw this clearly. Criticism is easier than admiration, especially when admiration feels like a mirror. So the next time someone attacks, look past the insult, and you might see a dream buried in silence. Truth 17. People don't act from beliefs. They reenact their childhood. People say, "I've changed." But Nietzsche would say, "You've repeated." The child who was never heard becomes the adult who never listens. The one punished for emotion becomes cold, detached, excessively logical. The one who had to earn love still performs, even in toxic places. What we call personality is often just survival strategy, refined over years. So if you want to truly understand someone, don't just ask who they are. Ask, who did they have to become to stay safe? Because behavior is biography. Truth 18. Patterns are a confession. If you know how to listen, a person who always ghosts when things get close, they're not careless, they're scared. The one who works endlessly, never resting, they're not driven. They're avoiding silence, because silence speaks too loudly. The one who flirts with everyone, but never connects, they're not playful. They're protecting themselves from depth. These aren't random habits. They're rehearsals, worn scripts etched by pain. Nietzsche believed that if you listen deeply, not to words, but to patterns, you'll hear what no one dares say out loud. This is how I protect myself. This is what I fear repeating. And when you finally hear that, you stop reacting. You stop judging. You begin understanding. You've come to the end. But really, it's a beginning. Because every truth we've explored wasn't just about them. It was about you, your wounds, your projections, your patterns, your mask. The more clearly you see others, the more clearly you'll start to see yourself. Nietzsche didn't want us to be cynical. He wanted us to wake up, to realize that behind every mask is a soul waiting to feel safe enough to be seen. Now take a moment, not just to reflect, but to remember. These truths, they weren't only about the world. They were about you. Because the deeper you understand others, the clearer you begin to see your own reflection in them. Nietzsche didn't write to help us judge. He wrote to help us awaken, to peel back the mask, and see not just faces, but fears, not just habits, but history, not just noise, but need. So if something in this video stirred you, if even one truth cut through the noise and spoke directly to your core, drop a comment below. Tell me, which truth hit the deepest? And if you're ready to keep unraveling the mind, not just theirs, but yours, subscribe, because this isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of finally learning how to see.